they put trackers on the trucks.
Oh.
Yeah. And they found that they only spent less than 20% of the time in the parks. They spent more time at Tim Hortons, Starbucks, and shopping malls. So they did. So for those of you, for those of you who think there's a bystander or a public service employee coming to pick up your garbage at the on-ramps, it's not going to happen.
Now, I am a calm, peaceful, easygoing kind of guy, except when it comes to littering. Now, there are certain things in life that will make me upset, and the sight of people in Canada throwing their garbage out the window at the drive-thru or throwing it at an off-ramp on a highway really sends me over the edge. As a matter of fact, according to the U of T, I can't believe this, over a 9-year period between 2012 and 2020, the equivalent of 15 billion plastic bottles and 14 billion plastic grocery bags became litter in the Canadian environment, and we have to stop it. To talk more about it, thrilled to be joined by a very clean man, Paul Macucci. How are you, Paul?
Good, Jim. How are you, man?
Good.
I love this show, by the way. So I told you when you came up with it, I'm like, pet peeve also.
We were with the family a few weeks ago at a family event, and we stopped at this city of Toronto, has a beautiful park right in the Scarborough Bluffs, and it's the landscaping is groomed, and I mean, it's beautiful. And there's the recycle bin and garbage bin, and there's a nice brick building for family washrooms and everything. And we go by the fence, and for people who've never seen the Scarborough Bluffs, it's almost the Lake Ontario's version of the White Cliffs of Dover.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I look over the fence, and there's heaps of garbage. People walked up to the fence at the Scarborough Bluffs with Lake Ontario and all this nature and birds and threw garbage down there. When the garbage can, I'm like, why stop it? And that's why we had to talk about this, Paul, because I've had it with littering in Canada. It's got to stop.
Yeah. Well, there's a number of reasons, which we're going to talk about today. But, you know, I wanted first, I'm an expert, by the way, on garbage. I got my PhD in garbage in high school when I was actually taken over by my parents. And they made me apply for a job to be a sanitation engineer.
Is that right?
So I was, for 3 summers going into my first year of university, I was a garbage man.
You and Denzel Washington.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the comparison. I'm feeling good today, Denzel. So, but, you know, it was interesting because I learned a lot. Number one, you know, I learned how to drive a garbage truck, which
ain't
amazing.
easy.
No, it ain't easy. And quite frankly, I learned how to tolerate heinous smells. Which, quite frankly, when you go into the dumps, you know, they're awful, the landfills. It is brutal. But I was lucky enough because we used to work 10-hour shifts. And so to get overtime, I used to work the recycle days, which in Etobicoke in those days were on Wednesdays. And I always remember because recycling was a new concept, and my mother, you know, was so proud. She had her little blue bin in the kitchen
with the paper and the cardboard and the bottles. Yeah,
she went for it. She was doing it. She'd, you know, give us a hard time and make us do it, and we do it. And so we go out, fill up the blue bin, put it at the curb. You know, in those days we had to pick up garbage, so we didn't have the big forks that lift.
Yes.
We'd run behind the trucks or ride on the back of the trucks.
And sling it into the back, right?
Sling it into the back.
Yeah.
So I had my own crew, and I'm working away on the first Wednesday I did recycle. I get to noon, and I get I go call in, because in those days you had to find a payphone. You had to call in. So I call in to the dispatch, and I said, okay, we're full. Where do we go now? And he goes, go back to the landfill. He says, we're full. Recycle's done for the day. Right? And I'm like, so we're done? I said, so my mother's making me recycle all this. And quite frankly, it's probably not getting into the recycle plant. We've had this problem, and it exists today, that a large proportion of our garbage, which we do recycle, for those good people who are good enough to put in their blue bin, does not make it to the blue bin.
But, okay, that's people being responsible, putting it at the side of the road.
Yeah.
The U of T did an in-depth study over years, over decades, and found that young adults in Canada between the age of 18 and 24 are the demographic most likely to litter, with 17% admitting to littering at least once a week. That surprised me. I thought the younger people were more apt to use the recycle bin when they're out or put it in the garbage, but it's become more and more commonplace in Canada, people just throwing their garbage, whether they're walking or driving.
Yeah. Well, you see, in my business, quite frankly, or one of my businesses, I see a ton of cigarette butts,
Yeah.
still a ton of smokers, gum. I see all those small debris items. And quite frankly, the reason is over the years that I've kind of noticed and people write about, there's the bystander effect, which I find very interesting. So someone else will pick it up. So, it's interesting. If you have a business for hospitality, it's interesting. As soon as you have it, people think that they have the right to litter.
So whether it's an
Bar,
entertainment place
restaurant,
or
entertainment, movie
food,
theater,
coffee,
you name it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. People will leave a restaurant and they'll just take something out of their pocket and they'll throw it on the ground thinking your staff who does cleaning will go pick it up.
Really?
Oh, yeah, you should see. It's interesting. I go into our bathrooms at one of our business, and after the event's over, and quite frankly, it's like a bomb went off. Like people unload the women, especially in
their purse
in the women's bathroom. The women's bathroom literally is like wall to wall garbage, and I'm like, oh my goodness! Like these are ladies who are at home. You think they, taking care of their house. Second thing is lack of ownership. So as soon as people get outside, which I find interesting, and this is something that we never used to do. This is a new cultural issue that I've never thought about before, but I notice it more. So as soon as they leave their living rooms, leave their homes, leave their personal properties, they start to discard things. Which is weird.
Do you not find it at the off ramps?
Oh yeah,
Where I see it, and a lot of the off ramps on highways in Canada have a little green space at the light, but I see garbage people throwing it out all the time.
So
why?
Well, so here's the stat that you hit on. Our disposable containers over the last few decades have increased astronomically. So whether it be coffee cups, whether it be takeout containers, all those plastics that we get things in. So as people are eating them in their cars, people are busier. They're in traffic more now. We talk about traffic all the time. So, I know myself, I always have to-go food moving with me because I know I'm going to be on the road for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm always nibbling on something. Unfortunately, when those people stop, the window goes open and they're just like, okay, I don't have to go home and put it in my garbage at home and then take my garbage to the curb. I'd rather throw it out because you know why? The bystander effect, which is basically someone else from the city is going to pick it up. But guess what? Here's the interesting thing. And they did a tracking study on the Parks and Rec people for the city of Toronto last year. I don't know if you followed this. And for those of you, you probably know who work there. They put trackers on the trucks.
Oh.
Yeah. And they found that they only spent less than 20% of the time in the parks. They spend more time at Tim Hortons, Starbucks, and shopping malls. So they did. So for those of you, for those of you who think there's a bystander or a public service employee coming to pick up your garbage at the on ramps, it's not going to happen.
So
right?
the U of T, to that end, further to your research there, they came up with something called the friction cost. So in their study, they did this over a number of years. They found if the garbage can was more than 30 steps away from you, it was too much effort to carry the trash and led to them dropping it more and more, which is messy sidewalks, as you said, the cigarette butts. So I was raised this way. My father was in the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Yeah.
And old Air Force Freddie, God rest his soul, if he ever found out that I threw something at the window and I was in another part of the country, he'd fly over it and grab me by the ear, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so I know, and to this day, is that like we're driving around, I keep the garbage in my car, I park my car, what a concept, and I put it in my garbage can at home. Yeah. It's not that much. It's just a simple thing, but it makes a difference.
You know what I find interesting, and it's the overflow effect. So it's for convenience. People nowadays, if a garbage bin is overflowing, so when you go to a festival or you
or arts and music and whatnot,
as soon as people see the garbage overflowing, they don't think of, okay, how do we get someone to change the garbage? They actually just throw it. So now it's like they don't. So it really is, and it is at concerts and events and festivals, but it's de-individualizing the actual littering. So as soon as you see someone doing it or you see someone overflowing or something else, it seems people seem to think it gives them the carte blanche to actually just keep littering. And it's a weird theory.